Hey guys, welcome. This is Jen Frost with Faith and Fabric, and today I'm excited to do something a little bit different with you. Today I'm going to show you how I like to map out my quilt plan when I'm working on a quilt that has a lot of negative space for me to free motion quilt. So we're going to be using the Dream Big panel. This is actually part of the Dream Big quilt along going on right now. I'll put a link up here to that so you can check that out. This is a little bit separate from the quilt along. The quilt along is focused on how to free motion, but I wanted to share how I went about figuring out where I want to put different designs on my quilt. So first we're going to talk about some supplies. You're going to need really just three things. You're going to need your quilt sandwich, you're going to need some safety pins, and you're going to need these little beads that you had probably when you were a little kid, or that you may have laying around your house like I do because I have children here. They're just these simple little tiny plastic beads. You can pick them up at your local craft store. I'll put a link below. And then these are just my quilting pins that I use to sandwich my quilt together when I've got, my three layers, my top, my bottom, and then my batting in the middle. So we're gonna head to the floor today to take a look at how we're putting this together and how this comes together to really make that plan overall so you can get a good feel for your quilt top. Let's head to the floor. So welcome to the floor of my quilting studio. This is a very top-down view of my quilting panel, and I wanted to show you first just an overall view of what it looks like and how I put this together, and then we'll take a closer look at it. That's a little bit better a vantage point for both you and I, okay? So first off, you can see here's my entire Dream Big quilt panel. What I've done is I've counted how many different flower petals I have on here. Now I have about 56, I think 57 different flower petals that I've ended up dividing up as I've gone through and quilted this. Now I have gone through and I've put in a double echo. I'll show you a picture here of what that looks like. And you can see what this double echo does is it creates just a little bit of negative space around each of the petals for me to be able to fill the inside with the design I want to put in there. So if you look at the quilt now from the top down, you'll see that I've got a lot of different beads on here. Now I've divided my quilt up into, like I mentioned, those 56 different individual flower petals and put that double echo on them. And now I want to figure out what kind of plan I want to have in order to how to quilt this. So I have 8 different designs that I'm going to do. Here are 7 of them. I have not figured out what that 8th one is. That's part of the fun of this quilt along. And I have now gone and I've taken 8 different sets of beads, so about 7 of each, so roughly that 56 number. And I've taken each one of those beads and I've organized the beads by different varying colors throughout the quilt, based not only on trying to get some variety of color, so there's not too much red in one spot, not too much orange, again knowing that those represent designs, but making sure that the design that I want fits that space. Now what I mean by that is some of these designs are really equipped well for certain spots. For example, right here I have a red bead in a very small flower petal. Now for me, the red means I'm going to be putting some pebbles there. Pebbles are going to be great to fill that little tiny space. For me, I would never want to attempt putting a huge design there, like trying to put in some of those swirls with flowers. It just wouldn't fit and it wouldn't look right. So I can go ahead and I can start assigning different types of colors based on the style of quilting that I want to put on there to the different flower petals. Another example is this white one over here. I've kind of put a cream bead on there, and the cream for me is my feathers. So feathers are, they look very long and elegant, and that's going to fill that space very well. So what you want to do is you want to come up with your key. Again, I'll pop my key up here for you. You'll see here's the different designs that I have so far that I've come up with, and you're going to assign a different bead to each one of those colors. Your second step then is going to become and to take your beads, and you're going to organize your beads based on, again, those 2 factors. First is going to be making sure you've got the variety that you want, and second is based on the type of petal or space if you're doing a different type of quilt. Again, this technique can be applied anywhere. And then you're going to start pinning them down, and to do that, I'm just using a regular safety pin. These are the little quilting pins, and then I just put the little bead on here, and then they just kind of tuck right in, and we can pin those. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin these on, and then we'll take a look at how it looks overall a little bit up closer. So we've got all our pins in place, and you can see how it looks a little bit better now up close. So you'll see here are the little tiny, I like to call them cobblestones, but our pebbles that we are created already. I'll actually put a link up here to how I did these from one of our Free Motion Fridays. And those are our red. And you can see what I did is I made sure that the next red was up here. So it does kind of build off it slightly, but it's not too much red. Like after you'll see a red here and here, the next red isn't actually until this little panel that you can see over here. So that way I have my tiny little pebbles really spread out so they're not going to fill too much space. There's a red way over here, which you can't even see, and that's probably the next closest. So it really spreads it out. Now, as mentioned, this little leaf is kind of a harder one to fill because it's so small. So you'll see I did choose to put some cobblestones in here, or I will be, because that'll nicely fill this space. It'll fill it just right. I couldn't imagine trying to squeeze some really pretty swirls. I feel like that design would just get lost in here. There's just not enough room for that. So by pre-planning your quilt this way, it's going to serve some additional purposes. Now, one thing we didn't talk about with an added purpose, if you will, is you're not going to have to break your thread if you keep your key nearby. Now, what I mean by that is, for example, if you start off with your orange, and I don't have my key right next to me, but say our orange are, let's say feathers. So I can do my feathers here, and I can make them, and then I can just trace along one of these edges that I've made to come over to my next one. And then here, maybe this is our spirals with flowers. So I can do my little spirals with flowers. Actually, I'll put up a link to each one of these as we mention them so you can check those out. But I can put my spirals with flowers here, and then I can just move over and be like, okay, white. My cream colored one are, I don't even know, maybe a meander. So I can meander. So you can see what's nice about this is you won't have to continually keep stopping and starting with different threads. You can just use one long continuous thread. And that's going to save you a lot of time on the back end because you're not going to have to worry about tying each one of those off and then burying those threads. And there you go. You've got your whole quilt pinned. It's all color coordinated. It's ready for you to sew based on your key. And I'm probably gonna, I didn't put this in the video just in terms of time for you guys, but I'm gonna take those same pins when I'm done with them and I'm gonna be putting them in the border. So the border of the quilt you'll see is that repeating pattern using a second of the exact same panel. I'll actually put a link to the pattern below so you can check that out. And there's a link to a video tutorial on how to make these curves because curves can be tricky, right? So you can check that out, but I'm gonna be taking these same pins and rotating those designs. So every 8th flower is going to have one of those same repeating designs. I think that's gonna look really pretty. It's gonna balance out. You'll see, you can kind of see if I turn this in the light, I just did a very soft little, almost like a curved flower petal. These reminded me of postage stamps, and so I wanted that curved effect of the postage stamp. But I think it's gonna be beautiful then to take these same leaves that are the same fabric and just repeat that pattern, kind of echo it in the border. So I hope this little short tutorial helped you guys come up with a plan for your quilt, whether it be this panel or another panel that you're going to be using different free motion designs on. I wish you nothing but the best as you sew. If you found something helpful today, go ahead and give us a like. I would love to have you subscribe as we continue to roll out new content on different ways to quilt and different techniques, and we will see you in the next video. Take care.